Hello, welcome everybody. I am Rex Sykes, and welcome to Create Your Best Life with Rex. I'm so happy that you're here, whether you're watching live or in replay. And my co-host Danny Welch will be joining us in just a moment. But first, I want to read you the biography of my guest. This is one of the good guys who I've known for many, many years. He was first born in Budapest, Hungary. Peter Foldy spent his formative years in Sydney, Australia, and after a family moved to Toronto, he enrolled at York University to study film, but took a 10-year detour into the music business as a recording artist on labels such as EMI, Polydor, and RCA Records. After he moved to Los Angeles, Foldy once again began thinking about making films, and he co-wrote a script entitled Hot Moves that found world success and was a pioneer of the teen comedy genre. That success of that film helped establish Peter as a writer, and before long he also began directing numerous educational short films, the first which starred a young Paul Rudd, making his film debut. A random meeting with veteran producer Menahem Golan of Canon Pictures led Foldy to direct his first feature, Midnight Witness. It's currently on Amazon Prime, and that film starred Jan Michael Vincent, Max Caulfield, and Hollywood legend Virginia Mayo. Other features followed, among them the HBO world premiere Widow's Kiss with Beverly D'Angelo, Trist starring David Warner, and Academy Award winner Louise Fletcher, Seeds of Doubt with Peter Coyote, and Silverman starring Eugene Levy, Joe Pantoliano, and Daniel Baldwin. Peter's currently producing and directing films aimed at the Lifetime and Hallmark marketplace, and he and his producing partners have just completed their 12th feature project since 2020. So without any further ado, let's bring both Danny and Peter up.
Hello.
Peter, it's great to have you here. And Danny, you're here with Peter and I, and together we're reaching a worldwide audience. So Peter, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Rex. How are you?
I'm good.
Good to see you again. I just saw you in Los Angeles.
That's right. Just about a week ago yesterday, as a matter of fact.
True.
Or a week ago today. I'm not sure, but
I can't remember. The dogs are getting restless. Those are your dogs.
Those are my dogs making noise. That's not my stomach grumbling. And Danny has spent the past week in Idaho from early morning till late at night, and just got back to his home in London. So we both arrived last night. I beat him. I raced him. I made it quicker than he did. But
well, I hear there was some weather in the States because I had my producing partners were flying to Kansas and they were delayed 3 hours, and then my other partner was driving to Missouri and he got into some kind of ice storm. So I'm happy I was here in Los Angeles last night.
It was nice. And now I see Mo Rock. Mo is the CEO, publisher, owner of the Los Angeles Tribune. Just did 8 days online, LA Leadership Week, and then did a live event in Temecula, California with Dr. Joe Vitale. So good to have you here, Mo. Thank you. And thank you, Peter, for being here, and Danny.
Thank you for having me.
So, I've known you many years, and I read your bio, but for the people who don't know, and you've done so very, very much. How is it, not only breaking into the business, because a lot of people who watch go, I would like to be doing what Peter does, whether they're a writer, a producer, director, musician, or actor, but they aren't quite, sure what to do or how to do it.
Well, that's a pretty broad question. I think, first of all, you need a desire to want to be in this business. And I think as a little kid, I always wanted to be a singer or an actor. I have no idea why. Maybe because I was looking for more love than I felt from, family or something, although I did get love. But I guess I was looking for some kind of attention. And I was pretty ballsy as a kid. I mean, when I was 12, I heard about TV commercials and I called up an agent like out of the phone book and said, hey, I want to be in TV commercials. And they said, come on in. And I went in and they told me you need photos and everything. And I did that. And I booked a couple of commercials and I kind of just fell in love with the film side. I was more excited about just being on set and seeing how it all worked. It was kind of like being in a magic place, a studio with lights and all these camera guys. And also it was fun to be the talent and be treated nicely and be in front of the camera. And then it was crazy to see those commercials on TV in Australia. But yeah, I mean, all right, tell me your question again. How does one do it? Is that the question? I didn't want to.
How does one break in? But I want to stop you right there with because you said something very important. You said, one, you have to want to do it, and two, you called people up and said, hey, I want to do this. So if I could encapsulate that, if you don't ask, the answer is always no, and you reached out.
Yeah, I would say tenacity. I would say, if I had, reduce a really long answer to a short answer, I would say tenacity. You just have to be tenacious. You have to want it, and you just never take no as an option, even though people tell you this will never work. I mean, I was making films and had music on the radio, and my mom was saying, I heard there's this great job available down at, Walmart, and you could be a manager because you've done, and they just didn't get it. Some people just don't get it, and so you have to sort of put earmuffs on and blinders on. If you really want this, you just honestly just have to go for it. And where there's a will, there's a way. And I think you have to find what path this business, you're meant to be in. I kind of started doing TV commercials as a sort of young actor. Then I went to film school, but then I fell into the music business and I did that. And, that was my path for a while, but then things shifted back to film. So you kind of have to be open to the opportunities that show up, if that makes sense.
No, I absolutely. Danny?
So important and such an important message for people to take on board, because you've got to ask the question, but you've also got to have that burning desire, right? And I'm actually looking on your website right now, Peter, at the side, and I'm like, whoa, you've clearly done a lot. And there's a page that I just want to show, if I may. I started taking pictures as a 12-year-old when I was given the old Kodak box camera as a birthday present. So you've got this music thing, you've got the photography thing, all this stuff going on. We'll show the page in a second, but just tell me a little bit about Peter as a 12-year-old with your Kodak box camera.
Yeah, I was very happy to get that camera, and I just started gravitating towards taking pictures right away. I have a huge collection of not just, my family photos, like my best friend and his wife and his kids. I have all their photos that I've taken over the years. So I've just always been interested in images. And when I got to York University years later, I dove right into photography, learning how to develop pictures. And I just love, in another life, I could focus just on doing photography. If there wasn't, if one could get another life, because I do love it. But yeah, I just ran around with that camera and just took pictures. And, I've got a bunch of them. A bunch of them are lost.
It kind of connects all different aspects of media, though. And this is where I kind of want to go with it, right? Because you've got the photos, you've got the music, you've got the film, you've clearly got this love of all things creative and this desire. And there's people out there right now who they might have a desire for one thing or all of those things. Rex talked about how do you break in? What can people really do to kickstart that journey, that path? Throwing the fears aside, what is some practical stuff we can do? Because this is amazing.
Number one practical stuff is sort of be good at what you want to do. So if you're a musician, take music lessons or sing or get into a band and practice your craft. If you're an actor, classes obviously really help. They fine tune your talent and your performance. Be ready when the opportunity comes. And actually having those photos that you were just talking about was what helped get me into film school, because I really didn't have any films to show when I applied to film school. But I told them about my life experience, because that's a whole other story I don't think I want to bore anybody with. But I came from Hungary to Australia to Canada, blah, blah, blah. Traveled around a lot, with my family moving. But I wasn't making really films myself as a director, but I showed them a lot of my photos, and they saw the potential in my vision, I guess. And that's what sort of helped get me into film school. And it was a pretty prestigious film school at the time I went there. Now there's film school on every street corner, but back then there wasn't. So,
Someone told me many years ago. It might be somebody that we both know in common, but the gentleman said, I have the opportunity to help people break in, and there's person 1 and person 10,000. And the person I'm going to help break in are the people who are active, pursuing it, want it more than anybody else. There are plenty of people who are sitting on the couch talking about wanting to do it, but the people who absolutely want it and are working towards it are the people I want to help the most.
Yeah, you have to be very proactive. And I also say, if you want to get hit by a car, you got to go play in traffic. That's my old saying, and there are people sitting in small towns across America, and maybe they do need to take a visit to the big city and try and make some contacts and try and get into some industry events. And I do a lot of that kind of networking and going to places and just reaching out. And like a case in point, I've got a friend who's a young composer. He's very talented, very hard to get work as a composer because there's so many composers and there's people with lots of credit. And I suggested to him, like, call the film commissions and all these different places where they are now making a lot of films. Places like I've made films in Florida and in Oklahoma. Call the film commissions and say, what films are coming up? Like what's on the roster that's coming up, so I could contact them before they start their film to see if they need a composer. So there's always ways to reach beyond the obvious. Try and look beyond just like, well, nobody called me, and I put my ad up and I didn't hear from anybody, so I guess I can't do this. There's always a way, and meeting people is a huge part of it. I think networking, and if be nice. If people like you, they're going to help you, like you said. I try and help people who have that interest in that feeling of like they really want to do this, they really want to make something in this business. So those are the people I try to sort of help.
I do want to circle back to the be nice, be likable, but I want to say that when we earlier in Hollywood, the 40s, 50s, 60s, there were what was called the trades, the Hollywood Reporter, Variety. They're still there, but they're online. It's a different kind of beast. But every day we would go and put our money in the outside, the restaurant kind of thing, and get our trades. Then there was a drama log, but there were professional papers that were professional newsworthy industry papers that on particular days like Thursday or Friday, they would have all the TV shows that were in production and all the films that's in production, all the things that are being cast that you could find. But for people who don't currently get that wherever they're living, your recommendation, you can call your local film commission, say what's going on, what's coming up, who's coming in,
but even better than that, invest, what is it, $10 a month into IMDb Pro, and then you get a list of what's in pre-production, what's in development. You get a list, and you could rear engineer. If you want to make a little art film, you look at some of the little art films that have been made and see how they did it, and look at the producers and then see what their credits were prior to working on that picture. And maybe there's somebody, hey, I know a guy that knows that guy, and just find a way in. But that's a good way. IMDb Pro is a good way to do it. But I'll tell you a story. You were talking about the trades, and it's a crazy story, and I've told it a million times. But I'd finished my first film, and it was pretty successful. It was done for a low budget, and it made, back in the days of VHS, it made a bunch of money. It was called Midnight Witness, the one you talked about. And then that situation shut down for me, and I was kind of sitting around. I had a good little first feature in the can, and I couldn't get arrested. And I used to look through the trades. I used to look through Variety and Hollywood Reporter, and I saw the name of a person that I recognized working at a film company. His name was Shelby Gregory. So I called up. I said, "Hi, is Shelby there, please?" And they said, "No, she's out to lunch." And I went, "Oh, I was looking for a guy called Shelby." And they said, "No, you got the wrong number." And I said, "Okay, sorry, but what do you guys do?" She goes, "We make movies." I said, "Oh, that's amazing. I just finished my first feature. What are you guys looking for?" And she said, "We only make Canadian films." I said, "Well, I happen to be Canadian." She said, "Oh, what do you got?" So I gave her a pitch on the phone. She said, "Come in tomorrow." A year later, we made that movie. It was called Tryst. Now, only in Hollywood can you call a wrong number and get a movie set up, but it can happen, honestly,
Well, and it goes back to asking, but now I want to circle back, and then I want to have Danny jump back in. But the idea being is You want to know what you want. You want to be clear about it, passionate about it, have tenacity. Ask, make sure that you're connecting up, like, find out what's going on through IMDb. But that said, if they have the choice between a nice person and a not so nice person who's all of the things that we just talked about, they're most likely going to pick the nice person unless they absolutely couldn't.
I would say so. I think that's a good, safe bet.
Well, the reason I say that is because a lot of people think that Drive, when they're showing tenacity and things like that, that they have to be kind of jerky about it. They have to, be a powerhouse, and you don't. You just have to be a good, nice person with a pleasing personality and a team player, and try and work together, I guess, in harmony and add value to the production instead of just being me. Let me ask you that before I throw the ball back to Danny. There are a lot of actors who think, okay, I have one scene on page 57. This is my big break. And it's all about them as opposed to, hey, this is my opportunity to help further the story or the information or be a team player. You're a director, you're a producer, you're a writer, you're an actor, you're a musician. So you wear so many hats. What would you say to the actor?
Well, I didn't make this up. Somebody like Betty Davis did, but there are no small parts, only small actors. So every part can have an impact, and every extra is important. Like if I look at a film and I see some person over, acting as an extra, going you can see they're like, trying to get attention. It's just really takes your focus away from the film. So fit in and just realize, look at the big picture. I would say, yeah.
I think to jump in on that is
yes.
Kind of following on. There's a lot of folks like these days who I do a lot of stuff in marketing. They come to me and they want the whole company built for them in 5 seconds with the money coming in, right? But they won't go out there and shoot one tiny video. Does everybody want the blockbuster before they actually have one little role in one little thing that might move them along?
I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't say everybody's, because most people don't even feel they can achieve the one little small thing. So I think people do put those roadblocks up, and I think that there's a process to it. And I think, yeah, I mean, there are some people. I have run into people at parties, and you talk to somebody and you go, what are you working on? Oh, I'm working on a $30 million picture. I said, oh, great. And who's directing? I'm directing. Oh, great. And who's in it? I'm in it. I wrote it. And what have you done? Nothing. Okay. Well, that's being, look, I'm not discouraging anybody's dreams, but you got to be somewhat realistic. No one is going to give a person $30 million to write, star, produce, and direct. I mean, yes, it happened to Sylvester Stallone, although I think Rocky was maybe only $5 million or something, but it's very hard and it's very rare. And this is a business, and people are not stupid with their money. So, you have to be realistic. If you're going to want to write, produce, and direct and star, do something at a level that you can get it accomplished and have a chance of selling it and financing it, which is even more important, because without the financing, of course, there's nothing.
Do you think, Peter, that people might dismiss the opportunity if they can't have something bigger than life, especially these days with social media and you open your phone and everyone's getting all these likes and stuff, and they might be like, well, my thing's not good enough, so I won't bother. That's
well, I would hope not. I would hope not.
Me too.
The other thing is, you can try one thing, and I mean, my advice would be to have more than one project. I'm always juggling like 5 different things, 5 different projects. Somebody calls me up, hey, we're looking for a coming of age. Oh, I have one of those. We're looking for something with music. I've got one of those. So over the years, I've built up sort of a catalog of passion projects, and I've gotten some made, but I'm still trying to get the others made. It's hard. It's hard to get them made, but you've got to be sort of ready with what people are looking for at the time and what opportunities are coming your way.
And this is kind of where I wanted to go with it, and just in the people starting out in anything, whatever industry they're in, whether it's art or film or music or just in business in general, it's sometimes easy to give up on that dream, right? Because you think, I'm not good enough. I could never possibly And those kind of things, clearly, you're just moving them out of the way. You're like, well, no, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. So what can we say to those folks who might have that blocker right now, just to get them past it and get them rolling out?
I would just say, don't take no for an answer. Part of the problem is that people also have to survive, and people have wives and kids and families and dogs, and they have to pay the rent, and you have to be able to live. So that's part of the big problem. If people didn't have to worry about that stuff, they could focus harder. But there's always a way to make time for what's really in your heart. I think whether you just do it on weekends, whether you come home at night and get on IMDb and look for producers you could approach, or whether you go to networking events, you do have to sort of go the extra mile and still pursue the dream while you're staying alive and paying the rent.
Wow. So I do know that we're getting some comments, and maybe we can flash some of them up on the screen, because there may be some people who are watching who have a question for Peter, and we'd be happy to flash that up to Peter.
Hi, Sandra.
Take a moment. And Sandra's a wonderful, marvelous person, and she is Canadian as well. So
nice.
She knows. And Paul is great. And Mo Rock, again, he's still here, I think. And he was in the music business. He still is. He's a publisher who made his start as a teenage singing idol. And very cool, very cool. So I would say this, because now you're working in a variety of different states, and many of those states have incentives and they have opportunities for people to come in and work. What I found in going to different states, or even in the different states that I live in, California and the Midwest, there's some interesting attitudes, and some people think, well, Hollywood is the gatekeeper and won't let me in, and I'm the auteur and I'm so creative and I know what I'm doing, and if they just gave me a chance, then I could prove that I'm creative and I've got stories. And but I think of it this way, and that is that Hollywood is a meritocracy. They want to know what you do, what you've done. They look at your resume. You're as good as your last picture, maybe, but if you're not active, there's no reason to include you, because you're not proving anything. And to that end, it's not about show, it's about business. After all, when it all comes down to it, it's the money. It's how many tickets can we sell, how many products, ad placement can we have, how much can we do so that we all profit. The bottom line is money, but it happens to be creating content. It happens to be creating art as his product. It's like when you create a purse, you can create a purse, or you can create a very artistic purse, but the bottom line is it still has to be, the idea has to be thought up, it has to be planned, it has to be produced, it has to be then distributed and sold.
But here's the good news. So back in the day, there was only one way to make a film. You had to get a crew with a 35 millimeter camera and lots of lights and lots of trucks and make a big movie. There was only one way to make a record back in the day. You had to go into a big studio, which was $200 or $300 an hour, and spend thousands, and some people had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars making an album. I could do it now on my little computer.
Right.
I can make a film on my cell phone if I wanted to. You can actually do things yourself that show your talent and show your ability for a very small amount of money. And you're talking about these little the states that I've been making films in. There's these little small pockets of industry, like Atlanta, of course, is a big pocket. They make big projects there. But there's a bunch of places where you can get tax incentives, where you can go.
There's only 5 states that don't have them.
Yeah, so most of them have them. So if you live in one of those, or if you go to one of those and become a sort of a resident in some way, which it's a long, complicated explanation, but you can access some of those tax credits that help you make a project. So the market is really open. It's become a world market. You can sort of make films or music anywhere at any time now, as opposed to there was only one way of doing it. You had to do it the old-fashioned way.
Well, and you had to spend a lot of money to buy film, process the film, But the point that you make too is that now you can do it really cheaply. But if you're not doing it, no one's going to see what you haven't done, And so you have the opportunity for very low cost to be able to continue to produce and direct and to act and to write, so that, and as you're doing that, you have the opportunity to get known. But what I wanted to come back to was the idea that you said, I have multiple projects. Because some people go in and they go, I have this script, it's the best script in the world. And they go, we don't do that kind of thing. And what else do you have? And they go, well, I don't have anything else. They go, okay, well, then the total answer is no. Whereas if you had other things in your back pocket, like you were talking about, you could pull out, because maybe the genre that you're pitching isn't for them, or the budget, or whatever, but something else is.
You have to find out what they're looking for. It's like they're the customer. You have to find out what they're looking for. So if you're going in with a Western and they do, Latin movies, Latin musicals, you're going to the wrong guy. It's not what they're looking for. So you have to sort of have the product. And obviously you can't write 10 scripts with 10 different genres. Write the one that you love, write the one that you know, and then look for the people who are looking for that kind of material, for the same kind of mindset that you have. And they are out there. You can meet people. Like, there's always a way to find someone who knows someone who knows someone who can at least get your foot through the door. And I think I'll tell you this. So I did all these films in the 90s. I was very, I did these short films and Paul Rudd was in it. And then I got to direct my first feature. And that's I had a really good run in the 90s. I did like 5 features, like one every year or every other year. And then a curtain came down. I couldn't get arrested as a filmmaker. I made like nice films. They won like Silverman. My last picture was made in 2000, basically, won awards and won best film at this little Toronto Independent Film Festival and best director. And I played 10 festivals, London and Portugal and all this stuff. And then a curtain came down and I just sort of stuck to it. I mean, I did other things. I had a play that ran off Broadway and I was involved in a TV show. So I had a way to survive, but I did not make another film. I didn't direct a film for 18 years. Can you imagine? 18 years. That's like a generation. And I think most people would say, well, screw this. I'm done. Film has abandoned me. But just by putting myself out there, I just lucked into meeting somebody who hired me to direct something. And that led to what I'm doing now, because I figured out that system of making films for the Lifetime Hallmark marketplace. And I was able to put together a really great team of partners. And, we've made 12 movies. We're starting our 13th in Missouri in late June. So, but I'm just saying 18 years, most people would probably give up. So I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's kind of miraculous that it all came around for me after 18 years, the film business.
Looking at your website, there's so much on there. What are some of the other big things that stand out from your career that people might just not know? And there's so much stuff. People need to check out the website. I'll flash the website on the screen, but you give us some of the stuff that you're so proud of that people really need to go and watch, check out, see. There's the website. But
every film you do is kind of like your baby, and nobody sets out to make bad films. Everybody sets out to make the best film they possibly can.
Right.
And, it's like no mother has an ugly child. So all my films are like my kids, just like all my songs are like my kids. And some of them, don't walk as fast as the other ones, but they're all, projects I'm proud of. But, I mean, Silverman's a cool movie, and it's sadly fell through the cracks of distribution, and it was available on DVD, and I'm hoping it's going to be re-released to streaming very soon. But that's one of the ones I'm proud of. That was a really interesting, quirky kind of festival vibe with Eugene Levy and Joe Pantoliano and Louise Fletcher, Academy Award winner from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So, my heart's into more sort of I don't know how would I describe it? Just I like sort of art films, not art films, but just films that talk from the heart, that have a really good story to tell, that take you on a journey. I guess everybody would say the same thing. But right now, the films I'm making are more very genre specific. They're women in jeopardy films for Lifetime. And you can make some good ones of those as well. You can come up with some great ideas, even though most of these Lifetime movies are kind of rehash of the same old story. But I try and take pride in doing a really good Lifetime movie, the best Lifetime movie I can for the budgets that we have. Now my budgets have really shrunk. Like I was making in the '90s, $2 and $3 million movies, and that we're now down to $500,000 movies. So you're shooting them in less time with smaller crews. You can't afford big stars, but it's still a great challenge to try and make one of those. And the best part of it is I really love doing it. I just have so much fun doing it. It's like I'm the happiest on a film set or in the film or in the recording studio. I mean, because I still do music. So I'm just very grateful to have those opportunities to do films and music.
I think there's an amazing message in that though, Rex, right? Because you talked earlier, Peter, about passion projects and the desire. And obviously, if you can connect these things together with your creativity, you're not actually working, right? This is a cool thing.
100% true. Not working. Like I don't have a day job. Like I love what I do, and I love doing it.
And that's why we can meet for coffee and Thai food.
True.
But you're not working, right? But we're not. But Napoleon Hill said, yes, work smarter, not harder. It's think and grow rich. Because if your thinking is right, then you take the right actions, and then you get the right results. But a lot of people do it the other way around. They work really, really hard. They spin their tires like when they're stuck in the mud, and the tires aren't making any contact, but there's lots of activity, and they think they're being productive. So, the cool part about what you're sharing is that, people should have hope. There's plenty of new avenues for people to make movies with low cost. They can do it wherever they're at. They can do it if they're driven and they're passionate for it and that kind of thing. And also, they don't, if they love it, just do it. And then, make your own career. Don't rely on others to make your career. I mean, that's something that is completely possible today.
Totally. And there's a lot more streaming services that are hungry for products. So you can make something, and there's a way to get it seen. Whereas, back in the day, you'd have to hope it gets into a theater, which is, we all know how hard that is, So now there's so many, there's YouTube, but I mean, there's streamers on television, that you can, Tubi, and there's people looking for product, actively looking.
But there's another aspect to what we're talking about, and that is that we're talking about the film business or the music business, whether it's writing, producing, directing, acting, that kind of thing. But this applies to almost every industry.
Mm-hmm.
There are avenues and ways for whatever you want to do, whether you want to go into finance and banking or investment or into tech or into medicine or whatever, to just have that attitude, to have the desire and to demonstrate your worth, as a person of worth that somebody would want to hire.
Totally.
Or do business with.
Totally agree with that.
See, a big thing for me is that you're one conversation away, and you talked earlier about dialing the wrong number and literally pulling a deal out of nothing, right? And I think there's a lot of people out there who are reluctant to have the conversation. And clearly, if you're prepared to do that with energy and enthusiasm, things can just literally appear out of nowhere, right? This is a skill in itself. What's your thought about that one conversation away?
So how I got back in after 18 years into the film business is a friend of mine called me up and said, hey, our friend George is like, he just wrote a movie. Let's go visit the set here in Burbank, or I don't live in Burbank, but that was in Burbank. So we go in there, we go, hi, is George here? And they said, no, George has left. And the guy said, who are you guys? Well, we're friends of George's. Oh, come in. You want to watch? We said, sure. So I started talking to this young guy, and he's a smart young producer. And, he's telling us how he's making a bunch of these movies, and he started when he was 18, and he made one, and he sold it, and blah, blah. He's just giving me this kind of formula for what he's doing. And I said, dude, I'd love to pick your brain and buy you some. Can we have a coffee sometime? So he gave me his number, called him up a week later, went for coffee. And I said, I've got a Christmas script, because he was doing these Lifetime Hallmark things. I said, I got a Christmas script. I think this is perfect for you. Would you read it? He said, absolutely. Give it to me. So I give him the script. 3 months go by, nothing, never hear back. So I call him up and I go, hey, buddy, I'm just checking in. Did you get a chance to read my Christmas script? You know what? I really haven't. I'm so busy. He said, but do you want to have another coffee? And I said, sure. So I go meet him for coffee, second coffee. And he says, "You're a director too, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, I am." He said, "Send me a reel." I said, "Well, I would send it to you, but you're probably not going to watch it. But you know what? I happen to have it here on my computer." Pulled out my computer, showed him I have a little 3 or 4 minute reel. 3 days later, he said, "How would you like to direct a film for me in Oklahoma?" So again, completely random, the fact that I went to this set, that I got to talk to this young guy who's a producer, and then I, bugged him a second time 3 months later. I don't know.
But you were also prepared. You had your computer with a reel
I
on
did
it.
have a
You could
computer.
pull out and say, "Hey, look! I know you're not going to watch it, so watch it now." I mean, that's
Exactly. And 3 minutes of his time was great. I bought him a latte and he watched my thing and I got a movie out of it. And I had a great time making that movie. And, sort of led to setting up my own little structure of making those films.
So you're 2 coffees away, right? That's
You're 2 coffees away. I love that.
coffees
You're
away.
2 coffees away from a deal.
You get that on your t-shirt.
I just want to point out again, we have some comments here, and if anyone has a question for Peter, feel free to ask a question, and maybe we can flash some of these comments up there too. Because
I will say this. I mean, you're probably, sitting in a small town in Iowa, you're not going to run into a producer,
Sure.
So maybe, like I said earlier, if you want to get hit by a car, you got to go play in traffic. So, maybe if this is what you really want, if the entertainment business is really what you want, maybe a trip to New York once in a while, a trip to LA once in a while. There's a lot of networking opportunities. There are these meetups for film professionals, meetups for young writers. It's a good way to meet people, or even other like-minded people that you could collab with, so you got to get yourself out there is my point.
That's a great point, and I would submit that probably every state that has film incentives has a film group or a writers group, or somebody trying to get a movie done that you might have to search, but you could find them if you try.
And all the film commissions probably have events, and you could probably register as an intern with a film commission that gets you on set, that gets you in the mix. So there's always a way.
This keeps coming back, right? There is always a way. And being determined and seeking that way out. I know folks who have literally borrowed a bicycle and they've rode to the other side of the town to go to an event, and they've not had any money, and they've gone in there and they've had that one conversation, and fast forward 5, 6, 7, 10 years, they're crushing it in whatever industry, right? That is oozing out of you, Peter. And in the early days, you talked about, we've seen you had the Kodak camera when you were 12, you're running around taking pictures, you were being as active as possible. Times would have been tough at some points in the career, right? And I think maybe reflect on some of those tough times and how your resilience got you through that. That I think could be interesting.
Well, I mean, it's always it's tough now. Even though I'm working, it's still tough. You go from one thing to another, and there's always issues. There's always this budget fell out. This actor's not available. There's always something, So, I mean, the toughest was the 18 years I didn't work. I mean, I was making some money to live, but I wasn't living my dream. I wasn't making films. I was kind of I felt very much on the outside of the business for quite a long time. And I honestly sometimes think, like, how did I get through that? I just honestly don't know. But I just think hanging in and having the good luck to live in Los Angeles, where there are a lot of events that one can go to, and just keep pushing forward, and not really, like I said before, no is not an option. You just keep going, just keep pushing. And then something random could change your life, as it has mine.
Well, I've known you for part of those 18 years, but you were always writing. You always had something you were writing or working on or attempting to produce, and with the faith that something could come through.
Yeah, I met you how long have I known you, Rex? I don't know.
At least about 15 years, at least.
So I wasn't doing anything when I met you. I was writing scripts for myself. And I actually enjoy that. I actually enjoy writing stories and diving into another world, into other characters and creating characters. And, I like, that's kind of therapy for me when I do it. But music is also therapy for me as well. Just like writing music and recording music. That's a whole other thing. But yeah, I think just hanging in is important. I have a friend called Stephen Kipner, and his dad is a guy called Nat Kipner, who has sadly passed away. And the guy, so he's got an interesting he had an interesting background. They're also from Australia, and Nat worked with the Bee Gees way back in the day. But Nat was always trying to be a songwriter for years and years and years. He just kept writing songs. And at the age of about 70, he wrote a song that was covered by Johnny Mathis. It was called Too Much, Too Little, Too Late. Too much, too little, too late to start again with you. And it became a huge hit. So here's a man that waited all his life to be a songwriter and had a ginormous hit at the age of 70. Like, imagine that. Like, the guy, now his kid is very successful. His son, Steve, who's my friend, he wrote Physical for Olivia Newton-John, Let's Get Physical. And he wrote some other, he's a really big, prolific songwriter. But that story was so inspiring, like, wow, you waited 70 years or 65 years to have this huge hit. And there's a classic example of never giving up.
Well, they say, Colonel Sanders began, his work at 65 or 69 or something like that. So, you're never too young and you're never too old, but you brought up something else earlier, and that was, Napoleon Hill also wrote and said, opportunities are all around you. You may not see them, so you have to be ready for when they appear. And if you're not ready, you'll miss them. And if you can't see opportunity, if you can't find opportunity because you're concentrating on the problems or your woes or the suffering, then you'll miss them as well. So, you talk about, making a phone call here and a door opens, or having a coffee here, but having your computer there. There's a certain amount of preparation, even if you're not seemingly actively preparing. With actors, they go, well, have a headshot, have a reel, have a, resume, be knocking on doors, get in plays, do whatever you can, but you demonstrate them.
And also find inspiration. I mean, if you're an actor or filmmaker, go see movies, or you can just rent them on TV now. But go see other people's projects and see what inspires you, or listen to lots of different kind of music. Go out and see live music. You never know where the inspiration for something great will come from.
Can I ask you about that? Because there seems to be, and I think the younger generation is remarkable, and they're wonderful and all sorts of, but there does seem to be, among a lot of young filmmakers, they have no idea of the history of filmmaking because they can do it on their phone. They have a technology that allows them to do it, so they never had to study it. Whereas people who came before, who had to buy film or whatever, usually, they saw a movie, they said, I want to do this, or they read a book, and then they read or saw everything they could. And nowadays there's a lot of people who go, yeah, I don't know who that is.
Film is only like 120 years old, right, or something. If that, it's a new medium, so it's not hard to study up on the history of the cinema, right, the history of like acting in films, or scoring or composing for movies. So I mean, we have Los Angeles, we have the Academy Museum. They just put in a brand new exhibit, which I really want to see, about the early pioneers of the film business, the Eastern Europeans who came here and started the entire business, basically. So it's a fascinating story. Which I like.
So we've asked you some questions and talked about kind of what we wanted to ask you. But what would you like to share that we haven't thought to ask you yet?
What would I like to share about my journey?
About your journey, or about the projects you've done or are doing, or what's coming up. And again, they can find you on IMDb. Obviously.
Yeah, and look, I'm open to people reaching out. Honestly, like, I'm happy to have a chat with somebody, or exchange emails and stuff. I do get sent some pitches and stuff, and a lot of the times they're not what we're looking for at the moment. And it doesn't mean, if I say it's not right for us right now, it doesn't mean you should ever give up, because it's right for somebody else, or it's right for you to set up the project yourself. But I'm not really sure. I mean, it's been a fun ride, really, and I'm hoping it's not over. I'm hoping it keeps going. But I mean, I had this whole music side that we didn't talk about, which,
But
well, there's another. This, God, people are going to think I got a horseshoe up my ass because I think I get all these lucky things happening to me. But I was in film school and I'd been playing in some rock and roll bands just to sort of make some extra money while I was in film school, and I wrote some songs and demoed them, and I got one of them published, and when I finished my new set of demos, I called up the lady who published my first song and I said, "Hey, I got this new demos. I'd love to play you." She said, "I can't talk right now. I got this guy, Bill Kearns, in my office and he just started a new label. You should probably call him." I went, "Really?" So she gave me his number and I called the guy a couple of days later and I went in and played these demos and he kind of liked the song. This was in the days when music executives wore suits and ties and smoked pipes, and they looked like sort of executives. And I went in there and he listened to the song. He said, "Yeah, I think, we can do something with these songs." And then I went away for the weekend and I came back and my mom said, "This guy called Bill has been calling about 5 times. And he said he wants to talk to you." So I called him the next day. He said, "Come on in." And I went in there and he said, "We've been listening to his stuff and you've got a really unique voice. And we want to sign you to a record contract." And that was like somebody telling you you've won the lottery. I mean, literally, like it was a secret dream I never dared to dream, because like that was like beyond anyone's expectations to get a record deal, which, anyway, I did. And the record got made and it came out in Canada this is in the 70s. And it went to number one in Canada. It was played all the time on every station because there was only one kind of radio. It was AM radio. So if you had a hit, they just played it all the time. So that led to, that was a very successful record. I went out on tour to support that record. And then I got signed by EMI, and then I got signed by Polydor in the States, and then RCA in the States. So that's what brought me down to Los Angeles. And as soon as I stepped off the plane in LA, I thought, wow, I love this. I mean, I just, from the smell of the air, I said, I'm going to live here. I just knew I was home. Because I had grown up in Australia before I went to Canada, there was a real similarity in sort of the vibes, the palm trees, the relaxed atmosphere. So I felt very comfortable here. So something just kind of brought me here. It's crazy. I mean, coming from behind the Iron Curtain to Australia, to Canada, ending up in LA, it's been a trip.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, I think LA is, it's my power place. It's magical. It's a wonderful, wonderful place. But I got to ask you this. There are people who are lucky enough to have a film show. It opens up and they may see themselves, if they're lucky enough, on a billboard for time being, or the movie plays down the street, it's at the, a theater for a couple weeks, maybe a couple months. But you get in your car or anywhere you go and the radio is playing, you might hear your song.
Yeah.
What's it like to get in the car, turn on the radio, and, oh my God, that's my song?
Well, it's two things. One is like, it's you, like you go, holy shit, I'm that guy that's on the radio right now. There's kind of a separation between me and that person that's on the radio. And the DJ said, "That's Peter Foldy with Bondi Junction, Toronto weather," like he's talking about somebody else, except that's me. And one time I was pulled over by a cop and the song was playing. I think I ran the red light because I was so excited to hear myself. And then he pulled me over. I said, "Hey, sir, that's me." He goes, "Yeah, I don't care. Insurance and driver's license, please." But it was trippy. It was very trippy. I still get a kick out of even hearing it on Spotify. I'm working out at the gym, and one of my things comes on. Spotify is kind of like the new radio now, so it's very hard to get on radio these days unless you're. I don't even know how the music business works anymore. That's a whole other conversation. Sadly, there's no money in the music business except for the top 1%. But that's not to say you shouldn't do it, because you can still. Okay, well, I'll tell you, this didn't happen to me, but I'll try and put this in a nutshell. I have all these crazy stories. My neighbor, just across the way there, he was a musician. I'm going to try and make this really quick. Anyway, he and I talked about music, a young guy doing music, and then he moved away. And then I saw on Facebook that he had a manager and he was doing music stuff. And then I kind of lost touch with him. And then a few years ago, I think it was in 2019, he wrote me an email. Hey, we're playing the El Rey Theater, which is just down the street from where I live. You should come out. I'll put your name on the guest list. And I thought, well, I'll go there. It'll be like 10 people. I'll go, have a drink and catch his act. I walk in there, there's 1,500 people all going crazy for this guy and his band and his singing partner. I was just blown away because it was so good. And, he said there's an after party, but it was like getting really late. It was 1:00. I thought, well, I'll just call him tomorrow. So we set up a coffee and we finally had the coffee like just before Christmas in 2019. And I had put out this new track, kind of a new direction for me as a singer. It's called Toxic World, which you guys should check out. It's on Spotify. It's a really good song, if I do say so myself. Toxic World. So I put out Toxic World. He said, hey, man, thanks for coming last night. I said, you guys were amazing. I can't believe it. And he says, I've heard Toxic World. I really like it. How's it doing? And I said, it's doing good. I got 5,000 streams on it on Spotify. And I said, how's your single doing? He said, yeah, it's doing good. We have 500 million streams on it. I went, what? And then he told me the story. This is the good part. And we're all, he couldn't get arrested. Him and his singing partner couldn't get arrested. Every label in America turned them down. They decided to put the thing on Spotify themselves, and they were playing in a bar, and some human walked in from Spotify and said, hey, I work for this new company called Spotify, and I like your stuff. I'd like to promote you. So suddenly they went from 10 plays a day to 1 million plays a day. And through some connection they had at Spotify, and the song was great. I'm not saying it was a fix. It was a great song. It's called Capsize, and the band is called Friendship, F-R-E-N ship, like there's no D. It's a great song. So anyway, that song now has like 700 million streams, and they got signed to Columbia. So there you go. Just another random story of he did it himself, and it happened.
And they didn't quit, right?
He didn't quit. And they've got some other great stuff on Spotify. So, I'm a fan of theirs.
Well, that is, again, it is be prepared, be ready. Anything can happen, expect something good to happen, and it might, it's amazing how often it happens. And then there's 8 billion people who may say, well, it's not happening to me, but it does. It does happen.
It does happen, and it can happen. And in the meantime, make good product, write a good script, write a good song, take nice photos, go out and network, because at the worst case scenario, you've had a glass of wine, you've talked to 3 people, and you've had some fun, you just never know, So it'll make your day and your night just a little bit brighter.
Well, be willing to be surprised too. I think some people get so dire and so down, or I've spent time with so many people who go, oh, I can't stand this town, or I hate this industry, or that because I don't get a break, as opposed to, I'm doing what I'm meant to be doing, and the doors just don't seem to be opening yet, but I'm doing what I love. I'll make this very brief. I produced a movie, 15 years ago. One of the worst experiences of my life. I wanted to flee every single day. Okay.
Just because life wasn't working out, or?
No, I was fine, but the project was
a good project. Okay, gotcha.
So, and it wasn't, I came on as a producer. And so anyway, the point being, every day I got up, I went, I'm living the dream. This is what I do. I'm making a movie. I'm actually producing a movie. I'm doing it. So the ride isn't what I wanted. I'm still doing what I want to be doing. And sometimes it's tough and sometimes it's easy, and if I had my way, it would be a whole lot easier and a whole lot more fun, but I'm still living the dream.
Yeah. So another cliche, and I didn't make it up, but enjoy the journey and don't worry about the destination. Right. And I actually have to say, I love the journey. The journey's fun, and the destination, if you get there and something great happens, that's fun too, but enjoy the journey because it's cool. You meet some nice people along the way and you commiserate and you share some, good times and bad times, and, take the ride.
So cool. I want to just bring this up, and I want to put this from your website up on the screen, Peter, but with the question, what would the 12-year-old with the Kodak box camera say to you now, knowing what journey you've been on?
What would the 12-year-old with the camera say to me now? I would say, keep carrying a camera with you, as I used to do back in the day. I always had a camera and I was always ready to take pictures. Of course, now we have the phone. But some of these shots are like, look at the guy sleeping. I mean, I was just in Paris, randomly walking through Luxembourg Gardens, and I just saw this guy sleeping. It's one of my favorite pictures. It just feels timeless. It feels like it could be out of the 30s. Just has a vibe to it. But a lot of the pictures I took were just like everything in my life, were just lucky shots, and just be ready for that lucky shot. Boy, is this sounding corny and cliche? I don't know, but it's what I think. I'll just show you some other pictures. Have a look at Wild Mild. I love this one. I was on the Toronto subway. Look at this lady, just a trip. And she's like giving me the nastiest look, but look at that picture, Wild Mild. I love her. She probably has no idea that she's, immortalized. Well, at least on my website.
and we urge people to go and check it out. We don't want to spoil the gallery. This is amazing, but
well, I have a large catalog of photos, and that's something I haven't accomplished, and I don't know how to do it. Like, it's hard to be a sort of a respected, well-known photographer, but I have a lot of really cool negatives, like on film. And I'm thinking now I might just invest the money and just do a book of like my best 50 shots. It's just something that people could, buy or see, or I could leave to my family. They get to see that I do have a creative bone in my body. So,
And Walmart's out of the question at this point.
Say that again.
And Walmart is out of the question at this
Walmart
point.
is out of the question. No, I won't be getting a job as a manager at Walmart. No, or Starbucks.
Peter, I love you, and I can't wait until I get to see you again, here, there, or anywhere. But we're going to close out the show. Before we do, I would love for you just to have any concluding thoughts for today. We'd love to have you back another time, certainly.
Yeah. And just thank you so much for having me, Danny. A real pleasure to meet you. Where are you, in Scotland or?
England, Northwest England.
Northwest England, okay.
Spent a bunch of time in the States this year, though, and I passed through Los Angeles.
Well, call me. We'll go
12 hours ago.
We'll go for coffee. We'll go for Thai food. But yeah, man, this is great what you guys do. And, thanks so much for having me on. And, I really appreciate it. It's nice to chat. And hopefully somebody gets inspired to just keep pushing on from all this.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. Oh, Danny just landed in LA for the next leg of his journey when I had left LA.
Okay. Are you here now, Danny?
No, I was in and out literally 12, 18 hours ago. I've lost the track of time, right? I've not slept for a day, but I was in Idaho and then LA layover, back to London and then back to the Northwest. But I'll be back in the US, no doubt.
Well, I'm sure we'll meet up. Thanks again, guys. My pleasure.
Peter, thank you so much. Hang out in our green room for a little bit. We'll be right back after we conclude the show. So if you can stick around, we'd love to see you before you go.
Thank you.
Thanks so much, and thanks so much everybody who's tuned in. Until next time, it's been a pleasure.
Can we put Peter in the green room and then?
Yeah, 100%.
We don't want to close it out, but Peter, thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Oh, Rex, what a show!
Well, that's what I was going to say. I was going to say it was marvelous, and I'm blessed to know Peter and to have him as a friend, and to all of these years, and then the many times we've been together, or even when we haven't been together, we catch up and find out what's going on. So I appreciate that. I'm glad that he was able to be here and be with us. I also wanted to say, for those people who are watching, please like the show wherever you're watching, subscribe wherever you can, leave comments. You can still always ask questions, but interact, engage, and share it. Share it for others. We're reaching out now. We're in the beginning process of this new show. I've had Create Your Best Life with Rex before, but it's now new with Danny, and we're now, we're getting our legs in terms of where we're going to be and how we're going to stream, and there's still some tech stuff that we're working out. So please do help us share the show.
Yes.
And because I love this guy. I mean, he's incredible. to be with. And one other thing, the next show, which is I believe May, I don't want to date it, but it's May 29th. It's our next show, whether the date is important or not, and it'll stream live. Will be Douglas Day Stewart. Now I've known Doug 50 years. He's the author, writer of Officer and a Gentleman, the movie that was Taylor Hackford directed, The Boy in a Plastic Bubble, John Travolta starred in, Blue Lagoon, and numerous other movies. And he's going to be here next time talking about Officer and a Gentleman. He has a new book coming out, the novelized version of Officer and a Gentleman. So we're going to talk about that, among other things. But Doug was very instrumental in helping me. He actually introduced me to Taylor Hackford, who directed Officer and Gentleman, and Richard Gere and Deborah Winger. I didn't get the part, just so you know. But Doug is a wonderful guy. And so I'm blessed to know people like Doug and Peter and so many others who are making things happen, and I'm excited about having him. And just so the audience knows, we also have other thought leaders and other people who are people about the law of attraction, Napoleon Hill, and manifesting, and all the kinds of things that you know us for. And so stay tuned, watch the show, share the show, and we'll try and get you all the important information before the show happens.
So just want to give quick shout outs to Pam, Lacey, and Alyssa, Martin Bentley Gibbons all the way over in Australia. Matthew King is on there. Alison Pickering's on there in LA right now as well. You guys are awesome. Also over in another group, James Healy's in there. Lorna Macbeth is in there as well. So we've got viewers that are not popping up in the system that we use over here, Rex, but we are in lots of different places. And again, big thanks to Peter, to Rex. Super excited for what we've got to come. Make sure you guys subscribe and like and all of the stuff. And I guess we'll be back again very, very soon.
Remember, if you think of something's the problem, it's the problem. If you think it's a blessing, it's a blessing. So that's why we say celebrate everything. We'll see you next time on Create Your Best Life with Rex, with Danny Walsh and me and our guest.
Let's go. Bye-bye, everybody.